What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction and back with another lucky dip, and this is another one from Chafic. And it's called The Spirit of the Hawk, and it's from Rednex, which is not spelled like it typically might be in a pejorative descriptor. It is actually spelled Rednex. And yes, I've never heard of this group or artist. It's from 2000 is this track, so it's a bit more modern than some of the other Chafic dips, if you will. And yes, I don't know, the title of The Spirit of the Hawk, it sounds like a phrase in translation, but perhaps from a Native American cultural belief or understanding, and of course to talk about qualities that are embodied in a particular animal and or their actions or behavior, I think is something that is common in cultures around the world going back to the earliest recorded history. So it's not something that I see as necessarily being native North American, but it feels like the type of phrase that is often associated, at least with popular understandings of those types of cultural beliefs and histories. So I'll see what I can catch on the first listen. This is Rednex. The track is The Spirit of the Hawk, and it's from 2000. I like that. That woo vocal synth, it's like a famous sample.
Some of them have run away to the hills and have no shelter, no food. No one knows where they are. Hear me, my chief. I am tired. My heart is sick and sad. I will fight no more.
Like a synth harmonica. Maybe an accordion. Oh! Right as some supporting vocals come in with some verve, it fades, which I feel like if you're going to do that a little bit earlier, or extend the track a little bit longer so I can hear those additional vocals. So yeah, in a way it was what I expected. It had a bit of that tribal flavor in the main chorus vocals, the male vocals. I didn't necessarily expect that lead female vocal. I thought it might be a dance floor type of track, not only just because of my sense of, I guess, my like random prediction, but also because I know Chafic has a lot of music that he's provided for the channel that does have a bit of a dance floor feel, whether disco or otherwise. But yeah, it was still surprising in some ways, again, that it almost sounds like a video game vocal, like synth, someone who gets hit by something and they're like, oh, or like, ho. And then to loop that or to make that a rhythmic aspect of the track. So I didn't expect that, and I feel like I've heard a trance tune from the 90s with that sample. Like, not just a similar type of sample, but that exact sample. So maybe my brain is inventing that, or it's conflating two very similar type of vocal synths. But yeah, I feel like I've heard that particular vocal sample before, and in a similar context, meaning not just once, but done rhythmically to sort of keep the beat in the synth work. Secondarily, it was the kick drum had a bit of heft to it, but the pace of the tune wasn't terribly fast. It was, sort of in that like house range. So yeah, it had a bit of thump to the kick drum itself, but the tune wasn't, especially driving. It just had sort of, again, a dance floor groove to it. And yeah, I wonder if this was sort of a one-off, so the Rednex name was just based on a track or two, maybe a single with a B-side, or whether this is actually a name or a group that has a fair amount of output. It's certainly not a name I've heard before, whereas, going into some of the deep dives where it's like, oh, I've seen that name before, I've heard that name before, so I'm guessing they have, several releases at least, or, they made it into the public zeitgeist, if you will. This is a name that I had never heard before, and I suppose on some level it might be seen as a bit like, a redneck. It's, even saying hillbilly I feel like is perhaps less pejorative, whereas redneck is typically seen as an insult, but then rednecks with an X, it feels like it's, a play on words more than using a denigrating epithet. So yeah, I wonder about the name of the artist here, or again, I would expect maybe it to be more than one person, maybe not a group per se, but a couple producers or something like that. So I look forward to hearing about any insight people have. And yeah, a fun tune, not one that, would maybe stand out to me among other disco or dance tracks at the turn of the century, or turn of the millennium for that matter. But that is in part because by then I was already buying techno and trance records, and, I have a track, and I think I've reacted to maybe a couple different versions of it, called Souls of the Tribes, which is by DJ Paola, and then there's some different remixes of it. And that tune, it uses some native North American chanting, and it has a, let's say, faster and more driving, like, trance beat to it. So again, this tune might not have hit me in the same way that that track did, or, a couple of its remixes, but it's definitely a track that I could use in a set that's perhaps a bit more down-tempo, or at least a bit slower compared to some of the trance and techno sets I was mixing back then. So yeah, a fun tune, maybe not a super standout one among some of the other Chafic dips that we've gone through, but I enjoy hearing all different types of music, and I tend to focus on aspects that I find interesting, so it's all worthwhile. Do let me know what you think of this one, and I will be back soon with some more Lucky Dips in this session. Peace.